Hello everyone, I'm Pacifically Casual Gamer, and today we have a very different video for you guys. I'm going to show you guys how to just make a basic Siege thumbnail in Photoshop. Just a very basic Siege thumbnail, and hopefully it's going to help you, experiment and learn how to make some thumbnails for Siege. So, I'm just going to start right off the bat. I'm going to show you guys the formula that I use when I'm trying out Siege thumbnails. So the first thing that I always do is I always use a background image, and what I try to do is I try to make it related to the video I'm making. So I'll show you guys all the elements here. We have a sledge, a deployable shield, the Siege logo we're going to pretend is the profile picture, and the garage background. So what I'm going to make this video about is about using sledge to destroy deployable shields in Consulate Garage. Right now, this picture you can get off the Wikipedia. These pictures are great if you don't want to take in-game pictures. So we're actually going to start with this image. I mean, this is obvious that it needs to fill up the thumbnail, right? Make sure you use a 16:9 resolution. The easiest resolution to use is when you make, I gotta push enter here. When you make a new thing, 1920 by 1080, try to use that if you can. If not, go over to here and do 1280 by 720. I would recommend, this is the smallest thumbnail you're gonna make, but this 1920 1080, oh, it's a perfect size. So, what we're gonna do, this is just gonna be our basic background image. We'll change this later. Next, we got to put sledge up here, and I'm going to use Control-T. It's a quick little handy way to resize stuff. And now, we got to remember that our thumbnail is going to be, for me sitting at my computer, my thumbnail is going to look like this. It's very tiny, right? So sledge, even though on this thing, it looks like sledge is taking up a lot of the screen, if we zoom out, he's not taking up a lot of the screen. The only thing you can really get from this is that we're in Garage on Consulate. You can barely even see these words over here. So we're going to take sledge, and we're going to make him big. Usually, you see a lot of this. I don't like his head being cut off over here, but I want to make sure his hammer's in the picture, so we're going to do that. The most important feature is the face. So pretty much forehead down to, like, this would be where Sledge's mouth is, right here. This is pretty much what you want to include. You can maybe cut off an ear or something, right? But make sure both eyes are in the picture. So we have Sledge sitting here. We'll work on him later. Next, we're going to have the deployable shield. And I'm glad that this picture is here because I always put my text on the left side of the screen. And if I want to, upper left. So this quadrant right here where this text already is, that's where my text is going to be in this picture. But we're talking about destroying deployable shields. So what we're going to do is we're just going to experiment here. We got to get rid of this background. A great tool for selecting stuff is use quick selection here. I'm going to make it bigger. And what you'll notice is it will select the outside of the shield. Now, as you can see, there's some imperfections right here. It doesn't select all the shield there or all of the shield there. So if you're OCD, you can get rid of it. But because this YouTube thumbnail is going to be so small, I can just push backspace to delete. It's not going to be a problem at all. So we got our little shield there. And a lot of times Photoshop will leave a border here. And we'll deal with the border later. So we have our shield. We got our Siege logo. That's just going to stay there for now. So we want our Siege logo to be in the corner. We can do a little bit classier thing right here. Now, something that I recommend for anyone is this bottom right corner you want to avoid. Because I'll show you here, if you ever watch a YouTube video, what's going to happen here? Let's fill this in with black. There's going to be a timestamp right here. Okay? There's going to be a timestamp. Let's make this black here. There's going to be a timestamp here. And it's going to say something like the video length, right? We'll make the video length, how long should we make it? 10 minutes and 1 second so we get all the ad revenue, right? So it's going to have your video length right there. Sorry, I'm clicking buttons, and I totally did something there. This is the first time I've really made a Photoshop tutorial. But yeah, so that's going to be the timestamp right there. Look at that. That's kind of that's really inconvenient, right? So Sledge's hammer, you might be able to see the hammer, but that's really what our thumbnail is going to look like. So we don't want to put our logo here because it's going to get covered up by this little black box that's going to be the timestamp. So our logo is going to go here. So we actually have the basics now. It's pretty good, pretty good. Next thing we're going to do is just put some basic text down. I recommend no more than 5 words when you're starting out. There's a bunch of circumstances where some people have their magic limit. My limit is 5 words. So the title of this video is going to be how to destroy shields in Consulate Garage with Sledge. So we have to somehow complement that title. How to destroy shields in Consulate Garage with Sledge. So the important words here would be Sledge and we'll go with this. Use Sledge to, and then we'll go with break shields. Oops, that is not how you spell shields at all. That's a good little thumbnail title here. Now, I don't like stacked words like this unless there's a line in the middle. I actually prefer using it sideways like this. Right? And you're going to just adjust this. I think personally for me, I don't like that it goes use to and then break shields. So we're just going to do that for now. Very easy, very easy. You'll learn the titling and stuff. So something you may have noticed is it's kind of hard to differentiate between Sledge, the shield, the words. The only thing that you can really pay attention to is this Siege logo in the bottom left. So the first trick I'm going to show you guys is the blur tool, right? So this, I clicked on the Consulate Garage. We're going to go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. And you can just blur the background out a little bit. Right? Make it look pretty blurry. We can still tell that's the garage. Actually, it's going to be too blurry. I'll show you in a second. So we'll start with a 3-pixel blur, right? And then, remember, this is going to be a lot smaller than it looks, so we got to zoom in on this thing. It's going to get rid of the blur when we zoom in. We're going to zoom in. A lot of people notice the van. That looks more like garage. And it gets rid of that white text. We don't want that white text in the background. So all of a sudden, it's there. It's zoomed in a lot. We got to blur it just a tad bit more, right? And you'll learn kind of like how to make it easy on the eyes as you make more thumbnails. So all of a sudden, we can see Sledge, the shield, the green, and the yellow. So this shield here, we want to make it stand out a little bit. So we're going to put a black outline on it. I recommend starting with a black outline and a drop shadow. That drop shadow is really big, so I'm going to tighten it up. The size is how big it is, the spread is basically how dense it is, and the distance is how far away from the object it is. And as you can see, there's that outline, but now it's a lot easier to erase that outline, so we're just going to get rid of it. We don't want that outline. Got the corner of the shield, that's fine. Boom, we got a deployable shield here. And something you may start to notice is this thumbnail is getting quite cluttered. There's a lot going on. I'll come back to that. Sledge, it's really easy. Stroke, drop shadow. All the Siege pictures, if you look up Sledge Rainbow Six Siege.png, you'll find an outline with a PNG background. It's so easy to edit these things. Next, we're just going to throw this on the green text as well. So one little quick thing is if you decided that you wanted this text to be black, it's hard to read, right? Let's go to the stroke. You can just double click the stroke in the bottom right here. And we're going to change the color to white. Boom. There we go. We'll just leave it with black text for now. Okay. So this thing's starting to get a little cluttered. A lot of people will put their logo in the thumbnail. I personally don't like to put my logo in the thumbnail, so I get rid of it. Usually, I have a 3 to 5 object limit, right? So my objects here, other than the background, is Sledge, the text, which is kind of hard to read right now, and the shield. That's 3 objects, right? I like 3 objects. We're going to put a 4th object here in a sec. So we can make this shield up. I like to tilt it just to make it, you know, a little bit not all straight and stuff. Text, I always like to keep it straight. Now, as you can see, I've customized my text a lot. It's very tight. This tool right here, we're going to zoom in on the video editing. This is like the spacing of your text. So watch, it's 180, I'm going to set it to 220. Boom, way easier to read. Now, if we zoom in again, this thing that says VA, this is how close your letters are. Mine's at -60. Watch what happens when I put it at -30. Much easier to read. Much, much easier to read. I'm going to make this text a little bit bigger. How to use Sledge to break shields. So now what you might have noticed is that this isn't talking about Garage Consulate anymore. And this is talking about just how to use Sledge to break shields, right? So we can swap back to the Garage concept, or we can use this as a thumbnail to talk about breaking shields in Consulate Garage. And I think we want to keep, at this point, a lot of YouTubers will, including me, have already made the video. So we already have this Consulate Garage video sitting there. So what we're going to do is we're going to go sledge. This is tough. Sledge. Oh, this text is so hard. Go like this. Consulate garage with sledge. Much better. We'll do an exclamation point just to class it up a little bit. Right? Boom. Look at that. Perfect. So now, instead of saying how to use sledge to break shields, right? That's for in general tutorial. We now have sledge, consulate, garage. Now, we have the shield sitting here. And if you notice, the color palette's starting to look a lot similar. There's a lot of darkness. We'll fix that. We're going to take this shield, and we're going to use one of my favorite tools, the pen tool. And we're going to look here in the... what I want you to do is if you suck at drawing, right? Right now, I'm going to hit Control-Shift-N for a new layer. I'm going to shove it under this text. Now, if you suck at drawing like me, right? Squiggly lines, I'm going to mess this up. So I'm going to switch my color to red here. I'm going to max out the smoothing. 100% smoothing. Now watch what it does. Look at how smooth those lines are. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a thick brush. This looks like it's going to need a 75 here. And I'm going to just draw an X on this shield. Boom. Now, that shield, it's kind of hard to tell it's a shield. So we're going to Control-Z. Make this a little bit less thick. Make it a little less chunky. And you're going to use Control-Z a lot if you suck at drawing. Every time something disappears from this X, it's me pushing Control-Z. Much better. So we have an X on the shield. Now, I really want the shield and sledge to stick out a little bit more, right? And so do I want with the text. So I'm going to decide right now that I want the background to be like a little bit brighter. So I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to go to layer. I'm going to go to adjustment layer, and I'm going to do the brightness. Brightness contrast. One of my favorite layers. Brighten up the background, right? And what you'll notice is sledge, the text, and the shield are all dark, and they show up better with a bright background. If sledge was super bright, my text was white instead of black, and the shield was like a neon green, like this red, I would make the background dark, right? So whatever your objects are, you want your objects to be kind of similar shades, and your background to do this kind of light, right? So dark in front, remember this. If the objects are dark, the background is light. That's pretty much all you got to remember. If the objects are light, the background is dark. So the shield here is kind of looks a little bit bland to me. I want it to look better. And I'm going to click select pixels. You see that? It selected the shield. I'm going to go to layer. I'm going to do an adjustment layer. And it's going to make a very special layer. You see it's only going to brighten up the shield. And what I want is a lot of contrast on the shield. Make it a little brighter. Boom. Now you can kind of tell a little bit more it's a shield, but the background's really bright. How am I going to fix this, right? The shield's bright. You can see the shield, but the background's bright. Well, really easy fix. We're going to click this shield here because if we click this, we're going to click the adjustment layer. Shield, double click on drop shadow, and we're going to make a chonky shadow. Just absolute chonker right here. Right? Super big. Boom. It's easier to see the shield because now the background of the shield is dark. And I don't like this X. I think it's too big, so I'm going to Control-T it, and I'm just going to make it a bit smaller. Right? And as you can see, that didn't work because it cut off, so I'm going to get rid of it. And I'm really just not vibing with the X. What you're going to find is a lot of the times, you're just not going to vibe with something you throw in. And you can see that this thumbnail's starting to look the same again. Not fun. Not a fun situation to deal with. So, I actually didn't plan for this at all, by the way. What I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to draw an arrow. We're going to make a new layer, and it's going to go right there under the text. And I'm just going to draw an arrow. I suck at drawing arrows, and for the essence of time, I'm not going to make it a perfect arrow. Oh, goodness. Okay, I might make it. There we go. That's an arrow. And you can fill it in, use the fill tool however you want. There's my arrow. You can look for way better arrows on the internet, right? Like the straight arrows. I'm going to put a black outline on it and a shadow. And I'm going to make it a less shadow. Distance. There we go. And I'm going to make it go under the shield. Because as you can see, if we zoom in, the shadow, it's kind of hard to tell if you're a noob, is actually going over the shield. So I'm going to drag this under the shield. There we go. We're gonna move this back. So as you can see, what I've learned is that this whole black text is not working. Everything in front is now dark and light. The red's bright. It's not working. So I'm gonna swap the text back to this green, this neon green that I like so much. We're gonna make this black again instead of a white outline. Much better. And then we can take that background. I'm gonna make it just a little bit darker. A little bit more contrast. Boom, it's a lot easier to see what's going on now. And if I zoom out, you can see the shield, you can see the sledge, you can see the arrow, you can see everything. This shield image, I'm still not liking it, but I'm not going to mess with it too much now because this is a tutorial. We're going to make sledge a little bit brighter, so we're going to right-click this thumbnail down here, select pixels, layer, adjustment layer, brightness, contrast. We're going to make sledge a little bit brighter, a little bit more contrast right there. Now, what I recommend doing is if you feel like moving a bunch of these objects around, right-click or click on sledge. This is the brightness layer down here, and this is sledge, and I'm going to click link layers. Right-click and right here, link layers. So that way, if I click this, they both move at the same time. So I'm going to do that to the shield as well. We're going to go click, control, click, link layers. Remember when you're selecting layers, you either control, or you can hold shift and do it. So now this stuff moves around. So I think I'm going to make this shield just a bit bigger. Kind of vibing. Much better. It's easier to see the shield now. A lot of your problems with not seeing stuff after you blur out this background is going to be due to color clashing or stuff is just too small. So the text is fine for me. I kind of would wish it was a bit bigger, but that's okay. I think I want the text to be easier to read. So I'm going to show you guys one of the many flares that I use. We're going to go all the way down to this background layer, Console Garage. We're going to actually go above the brightness and contrast layer. Shift Control N. I'm going to go to this tool, this paint bucket. If it's not a gradient tool, right click it and click this gradient tool. And what we're going to do, this is really complicated, so just so you remember, is we're going to get rid of all this. So the only square that should be down here is a black square. And the square on the right, we're going to see this opacity, 0. And what this is going to do is I'll show you, I'll make a new layer and I'll just show you what a gradient is. If I drag a line from here to here, it's a black color and it goes that way, and then it's not over here because of the opacity. So what we're going to do is we're going to scroll all the way down to this layer, and we're just going to make tiny little black borders right here. I'm okay with that. It doesn't have to be perfect. If you want it to be perfect, go into Photoshop and just keep going and then save like a pre-made. Boom. And all of a sudden with that border, I can make it a little bit chunkier. If I want to, I can copy it with Control C, and if I want to make it darker, I can click Control V. See, it's getting darker. I kind of vibe with this, I'm not gonna lie. So there's actually 3 of those layers put together. So I'll show so now what I'm gonna do is just make the consulate background because I think it's too dark. Right? This is all personal preference. I'm gonna make it a little bit brighter. And boom, there's our thumbnail with our crappy little arrow in the middle. Consulate Garage with sledge. Right? This is just a video on how to deal with shields and sledge and all of that. And I'm actually going to keep this thumbnail. I'm going to change out the arrow, but I will use this thumbnail in a video because I'm pretty confident with it. I like it, you know. I'll show you some Consulate Sledge Garage shield strats, you know. So, the things that I want you to take away from this is keep thumbnails very simple, right? You don't need to make these intricate outlines. I mean, this took me, what? Let me check the recording time here. It took me about, it was about 20 minutes, right? 20 minutes is a good time for a thumbnail. And I didn't even do everything right. I'm going to swap this arrow out. But objects need to be big in your thumbnail because it's going to be very small, right? Objects need to be big. Text needs to always be legible. If you can't read the text, either change it so you can read it or delete it. And if you have a face, make sure that the whole face is in there. And if it's a crowd, you still want the faces to be in there. So every face needs to be in there. And then nothing ever in the history of thumbnails goes in this bottom right corner because it's going to get covered by the timer. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, you want me to make another Photoshop tutorial explaining how to do something and why I did it in this video, please let me know in the comments below. I would be happy to help y'all out in making some Siege thumbnails. So that's it. I'm Pacific the Casual Gamer. I suck just as bad as you do at making videos and making thumbnails, and I'll see you guys in the next one.